And we will. Decisions will be made in November, sorry about that. In November, is it November? November of this year. So with that, we'll go ahead and pull up the RFP and then go through the specific components and elements of that.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. And we're gonna just go through, I'm not gonna read every single part of this, but we will go through the big pieces of it. Okay. So we go through, I mean, a lot of the people on this call were first round grantees, so you're familiar with our North Star. Here we have a link to our Northwest Dayton geography, so you can look at a map of the geography. We talk about what we're looking for here. So like Erica said, we're looking to fund small emerging nonprofits that serve Northwest Dayton. So we're defining small as having an annual budget of less than $500,000. We would like them to be located in the city of Dayton, but again, primarily serving residents who live in Northwest Dayton is the most important piece of this. And then again, with preference given to organizations led by a person who identifies as Black or African American. So a lot of you again will remember that we had you all participate in the Northwest Dayton Partnership Community Plan planning sessions with the residents. We are looking for applications that will address specific focus areas of that plan. So here we list the focus areas and some examples of what the residents have asked for in that plan. You can find the whole plan here by clicking here, and it's also on our website. So I would recommend getting very familiar with the plan if you're not already, and thinking about where your organization can play a role in accomplishing the things in the plan that the residents have asked for. Okay, I'll let you guys read that on your own. What we don't fund, so this shouldn't be too surprising. But if there are questions about any of these, we'll take those questions at the end of this. Okay, and like Erica said again, it's up to $100,000. So last year in the first round, you'll remember that when the residents looked over and scored the applications, sometimes they said, you know, we want to support this project, but we think the budget should be different, and then the budget would have to be amended. We are not doing that this year. And so when you submit your application, it will be judged with that budget. Meaning if the residents think that your organization does need $100,000 to accomplish what you've talked about in your application, then you'll be scored high because they think that they want to fund that project. If they think you're asking for too much or too little to accomplish the proposal, then it'll be scored lower. So they're not going to try and amend any budgets. They're going to say, you know, they're going to look at the application and say they've matched their budget to the work. And that's how the scoring will be done. So hopefully that's clear, but I can answer questions about it afterwards. Again, we'll be meeting as a cohort, and those are mandatory. And then we'll be offering technical assistance. And the idea behind this second round is that we will have much fewer grantees, which will allow us to do more intense technical assistance and more individualized technical assistance. We have some highlights from cycle 1 on here from some of the work that some of our grantees to accomplish. We have our timeline, and then, which is what Eric, we actually have, a timeline at the bottom as well, at the end of this as well. Okay, so now we're gonna get into the actual application. This is the eligibility checklist. So these are the things that need to be checked in order to apply for this grant opportunity. The application questions start with questions about the leader of the organization. So this is the CEO, the, founder, the, however you call your leader. We ask about some lived experience. And then it goes into questions about the actual organization. These all should be pretty straightforward. And here's where we ask you to tell us how the primary focus of your organization supports the strategies of the Northwest Dayton Community Plan. So you'll notice we reference back to the community plan pretty often. We want to know how the work you're proposing to do, or the work you already do, aligns with that plan. Okay, so I think one of the special things about this grant opportunity is that we are allowing organizations to apply for funds, not just for projects. So you can apply for funds for capacity building of your organization. You can apply for capital for your organization. So if you need to do board development, if you need to hire a bookkeeper to get your audits in order, if something to further the capacity and ability of your organization to do the work you're already doing, that is an allowable cost in this grant. So we ask that if you are going to ask for money for a portion of your budget to cover capacity building, let us know what that looks like for you. And then for your proposed project, or the part of your programming that you think aligns really well with the plan, or that you are proposing, this is where you'll explain what your project is, and again, how it aligns with the plan. How will you know you are successful? So this is where we ask for those SMART goals. We did an example here, but we just expect them to be specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely, right? All the things we know about SMART goals. And then just kind of talk about how you're going to collect the data, if it's data that needs to be collected. Talk about just how you plan on knowing you're being successful in your program, and therefore us knowing you're being successful. Describe the population. So of course, who do you plan to serve with your program? And if it's you're asking for capacity money, then this would be, what is your whole organization serve? And if you're asking for project money, or could be a combination of both, we just need to understand who you're serving. And then of the population you currently serve, what's the percentage that reside in Northwest Dayton? So we want to know right now, with what you're doing, who are you serving? How many of them live in Northwest Dayton? Okay, so this is our budget section. This is total revenue, in kind. So this is like volunteer hours, etc. This is where you'll tell us how much you're requesting. So that's your total, how much you're requesting from us. And then the percentage of each fund of the fund that you're asking for the program, for the capacity, and for capital. Okay, so then we have our budget worksheet, so this is where you'll tell us just the overall budget for the current fiscal year for your organization. And then we will have budgets for each of the three pieces of the grant that you could potentially ask for. So if your whole budget is just project, you'll only fill out project. If your whole budget is capacity, you'll only fill out capacity. If you have a combination, you'll fill out both. Hopefully that makes sense. We did realize yesterday that we're missing a page of the budget on here, so we're gonna fix that by the beginning of the week, next week, and that will be updated. It's just going to be another one of these pages, so it'll look exactly the same. Okay, and then the final piece is our demographic form. So this is where we're asking how the demographics of your staff and of your board and of the people you serve and your volunteers. So for each of these, you'll put the number of paid staff that identifies African American or Black, people on your board who identify people served and your volunteers. And that's just, pretty self-explanatory the whole way. We also want to know Northwest Dayton residents, so how many people on your staff live in Northwest Dayton, how many of your board members live in Northwest Dayton, etc. Okay, and then if you have any questions, this is the email to send those questions to. And this is also where you will submit your final application. And then here's that timeline we talked about earlier. So September 15th, before midnight, that is when we expect the applications to be in. Late applications will not be accepted. And that is all I have. So I will stop sharing and I will take questions now.
No questions?
I do, I have one. Hello, everybody. So this time it's only for nonprofits. You are not doing for-profit organizations?
If you have a fiscal agent that is a nonprofit, we can do it that way. But we are looking for nonprofits, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
I have another question. Will this be the last session or will there be one more?
This is the last informational session, and then we'll have a week for you all to submit questions. So if you start working on it next week and some questions arise, you can send us the questions in an email and we'll put out the Q&A document on the 23rd for everyone to see.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. We had Sean from Parity on yesterday, so there were a lot of questions.
About all the questions yesterday.
Miss Cynthia, you're good. It all makes sense. Okay. Shaq, how are we doing? Can't tell. I'm trying to think if there were any questions from yesterday that we could.
So, did they have a question about who was scoring?
Right, so
Yes.
remember that it is, that we're again doing it so the residents are going to be scoring the applications and making the decisions. On who gets funded, so, we are starting our training at the end of the month, for the resident review panel, and then. It should probably, honestly, it'll probably be a lot of the same who were on it last year, so they should be pretty. Good to go for this year, I think they're coming back for round 2, so. So Learn to Earn won't be making any final decisions, we're just here to help guide the process.
The other question we received yesterday was how many organizations do we think we reasonably could fund? And that really does depend based on your applications, but the hope is anywhere between about 6 to 10. And this year we wanted to be able to give more money to organizations so that your impact would look different. You know, the first round, we had a lot more money, but a lot more organizations as well, so they could have been in the amount of 15,000 or. And so this year, we want to make sure that we're specifically allowing organizations, giving organizations the amount of money that they need to make real impact.
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Amy.
Okay, thanks. And you might have addressed this, but forgive me, would like renting a location, paying for a space be inside of the grant, or is that outside of the, what it could be?
Sorry, Amy, you're a little muffled, I heard
Oh,
inside,
so-
outside.
Yeah, so if we're looking for a location in Northwest Dayton to settle the office, to open, would like renting a space be something that would be considered capacity building or inside of the grant, or is that outside of it?
Yeah, that would be capital,
Capital expenses.
yeah, capital expenses would be like rent, or, if you have to renovate a
Make any
building.
improvements or anything like that.
Yeah, so yes, that's allowable.
Oh,
The other question we received, was with regard to where the specific nonprofit was located. So you yourself do not have to be located in Northwest Dayton, but the majority of the, people that you serve do, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. And, you know, I think we were, strict's not the right word, because I think we allowed for some flexibility last year a little bit with like zip codes, knowing that some zip codes overlap, et cetera. But I think that we are very cognizant of the fact that there are no real borders between, like Northwest and West Dayton, for example, and so, I think just like kind of talking through that in your application, if you know that some of your participants or clients are going to maybe also be in West Dayton, just kind of talking through that in your application would be helpful for everyone, because we know we can't we're not putting up walls right around Northwest Dayton, so we know there's a lot of movement within populations, et cetera.
I have another question. So are we how about, okay, so you said West Dayton, but what about Trotwood? Because there is that overlap there as well with the Northwest Dayton. So there are some properties, I mean, there are some places that are, I don't know, really close to the line.
Yeah, again, I think that we provide the geography to give everyone a really good idea of what we're saying when we say Northwest Dayton. And I think we do want to still make sure that we are focusing our efforts in Northwest Dayton.
Okay.
I just don't want to, we don't want to limit, you know, someone's application if they know that some populations might bleed over into West or Trotwood, or, you know, that kind of we're just trying to be a little more flexible and also stay true to the money and, you know, the mission of Northwest Dayton Partnership.
Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon. This is Deborah.
Hi, Miss
Hi.
Deborah.
How's everyone today?
Good, thank you.
Wonderful. I want to say pretty much for the record that we were able to be a recipient of these funds last year. And I just wanted to say that it can work with a for-profit and a nonprofit organization. And I just want to say I appreciate the opportunity to be able to have such a collaboration with Miss Cynthia last year. I think it was the first time for all of us. And I just want to say that I'm grateful, you know, that we were able to be a recipient. My question is on the budget. Last year, we were able to put in for volunteer labor at $28.54. Would that still be allowable, or should we just take it to $29?
I think so. Yeah.
We would allow for that level of flexibility. I think you're referring to, I think in the budget, it asks you to round up to the nearest dollar. Is that? what you're-
Uh-huh.
I think it's okay. So I wouldn't
Okay.
change if that's a crucial part of the budget. I think it's okay to keep it as is.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions before I want to make sure everyone has enough time. to Think about it. Okay. Well, most of you know who I am. And so if you need anything, you can always reach out to me, but that Northwest email that's on the RFP, that's where we'll be collecting questions from there to put into the Q&A document. I think.
Yeah, no, I think that was it, unless you have other questions, and like we said, you have up until the 17th, so if you have a burning question that you didn't get to ask here, or something comes up as you go through the application in greater detail, please don't hesitate to send those to the email that's provided. And we will respond and provide all of those again online for you.
Okay. Last call, everyone good?
Yes, this is Melinda Mays. I am good with everything. Thank you so much for explaining everything in detail and giving us a means to ask questions in the future should we need to.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
All right, y'all. Thank
Have a
you
great
for
afternoon.
joining us, and I'm sure I'll talk to a lot of you pretty soon. Bye.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a good Thursday.
You too.
Thank you.